Welcome to a presentation on neoclassical physics. Neophysics has the most accurate theories of physics. We challenge you to disprove us. If not, we welcome you to join us and profit from the new science. In this presentation, we discuss about extending classical type orbits to explain characteristics of hydrogen and other diatomic molecules. Early such attempts by Bohr failed because in his designs, electron was providing all the attraction necessary to hold the protons together. We propose a novel method where the attractive force opposing the repulsion between protons is linked to the angular velocity conservation. With this, we can derive formulae which predict the upper limit of bond lengths and captures the trend in the diatomic bond lengths. We can also extend our model to explain the dissociation energy of the hydrogen molecular ion. That is the reaction H2 plus, which is the hydrogen molecular ion, plus 2.8 electron volts gives to one hydrogen atom plus an hydrogen nucleus, H plus, which is just a proton. And we can also explain Coulombic explosion of the protons in H2 plus. Further, we can also explain the ionization and dissociation energy of the hydrogen molecule. That is the reaction H2, which is the hydrogen molecule, plus 15.4 electron volts ionizes it, which gives H2 plus one free electron, E minus. And the reaction H2, which is the hydrogen molecule, plus 4.74 electron volts gives rise to two free hydrogen atoms, H plus H. Before proceeding further, we should stop and notice a fact about actually a difference between the angular momentum conservation and angular velocity conservation. Let us just consider the simple 2D energy equation with the radial dr by dt term and the rotational r d theta by dt component. So this is the energy equation, E equals half m dr by dt square, which is the radial energy component, plus half m dr r square d theta by dt whole square, which is the radial velocity component, radial energy component. So if in this equation we assume that the angular velocity is conserved, that is d theta by dt equals some constant omega, big omega, then this equation, energy equation, gets converted to E equals half m dr by dt whole square plus half m r square omega square, because d theta is constant, d theta by dt is constant. If we differentiate this energy E with respect to r, dE by dr, we get this equation, m d square r by dt square plus mr omega square equals 0. This is nothing but it shows centripetal force or an attractive force, because we get m d square r by dt square, which is the radial acceleration term or the radial force term, m d square r by dt square equals minus mr omega square. So this is the center seeking or the centripetal force, so hence it is attractive. On the other hand, if we assume angular momentum conservation, that is A, which is a constant, is equal to m r square d theta by dt, then the energy equation gets converted to this form, E equals half m dr by dt whole square plus half a square by mr square. So here we have replaced this rotational energy term with half a square by mr square. If we consider the derivative of E with respect to r, dE by dr, then we get d by dr equals m d square r by dt square minus a square by mr cube. If E is constant, then d by dr will be 0, so we get this centrifugal equation, centrifugal force, or which shows the repulsion, m d square r by dt square equals a square by mr cube. So this is the radial force. Notice the sign difference between the two cases. That is, in the angular momentum, A conservation generates a repulsive force plus a square by mr cube, shown here. And the angular velocity, that is omega conservation, generates an attractive force minus mr omega square, shown here. These are also the two regimes observed in a Rankine vortex. The inner core region, for example, the eye of a cyclone, conserves angular velocity, and outside the core, angular momentum is conserved. So this is the Rankine vortex. This is the inner region. This is the outer region. So consider two protons on a circular orbit. Let some constant q be equal to E square by 4 pi epsilon naught, where E is the charge of the electron and epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space. So we can write the electrostatic force F as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into E square by 4 r square. We take the distance between the two protons as 2r. So E square by 4 r square, which will be nothing but q by 4 r square, because q is defined as this E square by 4 pi epsilon naught. So force becomes q by 4 r square, and the electrostatic potential energy similarly becomes q by 2r, where 2r is the distance between the two protons and q is a constant. So the net energy of this two proton system can be written as E equals this 2 into whole of half m dr by dt square plus half m r square omega square, because this is angular velocity is conserved, plus q by 2r, which is the potential energy term. So graphically, this is how we see it. So this is the distance between the two protons, 2r. These are the two protons plus E shown as this. And they have an angular velocity omega. So this is the energy equation. If we take the derivative of E with respect to r, we get this expression, m d square r by dt square plus mr omega square minus q by 4r square equals 0. This is if energy is conserved, if E equals constant. So here we see that centripetal force is generated. The centripetal force generated by this omega or angular velocity conservation balances the repulsion between the protons. So basically from this equation we get this 4m r cube omega square equals q equals q is nothing but a constant. Q is E square by 4 pi epsilon naught. So basically we get this circular orbit criteria, which is m r cube omega square equals constant, which is like the Kepler's third law form. So this is 4m r cube omega square equals q. This is what we get from for the circular orbit criteria. Now the reported distances between the two hydrogen atoms in any molecule, or not necessarily hydrogen H2 molecule, any molecule, is in the range 7 into 10 power minus 11 meter to 18 into 10 power minus 11 meter. So this is the range. This implies 2r, the distance between the two protons, is like 1.3 rb to 3.5 rb in this range, where rb equals Bohr radius, the first orbit Bohr radius, rb equals 5.29 into 10 power minus 11 meter. Therefore, this big omega corresponding to the observed distance, that is 2r equals 1.3 rb to 3.5 rb, will be can be derived using the circular formula we derived for circular orbit criteria, that is 4 mp r cube omega square, where mp is mass of the proton, is equal to q is equal to nothing but me rb cube omega b square. Here me is the mass of an electron, rb is, as we said, the Bohr radius, the first Bohr radius of the first Bohr orbit, and omega b, the small omega b is the angular velocity of electron in the first Bohr orbit. So omega b is equal to 4.14 into 10 power 16 radians per second. So using this, this gets converted to omega. So the big omega we can estimate using this formula. Omega is square root of me rb cube by 4 mp r cube whole into omega b. So if 2r is in the smaller range, 2r is 1.3 rb, then we get omega is 0.022 omega b, big omega. And if 2r equals 3.5 times rb, then big omega is 0.005 omega b. So we can see that for a larger distance we get smaller omega. This is the smaller omega range. or the lower range of omega, and this is the higher range of omega. Similarly, we can calculate MP omega square, or basically we can calculate omega square, but we'll calculate this term MP omega square. So if 2R is on the smaller range, 1.3 RB, and we saw omega is 0.022 omega b, then MP omega square becomes 1388. And if 2R is in the higher range of radius, higher range of distance, 3.5 RB, then omega is on the lower range, 0.005 omega b, and MP omega square will be also very small. MP omega square will become 72. So using this RB, R and omega values, we can get the angular momentum also. So this is MP omega square is in the range of 72 to 1388. And similarly, if we calculate the angular momentum corresponding to these values, then we get the angular momentum of the proton in this circular orbit is MP r square big omega will be in the range of 17 to 28 h bar. This is not a integral multiple of h bar, we can notice. It has some fractional h bar multiples. And this values is quite high. So using the values and the circular orbit criteria, this 4m r cube omega square equals q, in the energy equation, we get this. Basically, we eliminate the dr by dt term because r is constant. We'll be left with the rotational energy term of the two protons, which will become half m r square omega square plus half m r square omega square will become m r square omega square. Plus this is the potential energy term. So this can be replaced by q by 4r. So we get q by 4r plus q by 2r equals the total energy of this two proton system in the circular orbit is 3q by 4r. So if r is in the lower range, 2r equals 1.3 rb, then the energy is high. We get 31.4 electron volt. And if r is in the higher range, 3.5 rb, then we get the total energy of this two proton system as 11.6 electron volt. So this is the range of the energy, 11.6 to 31.4 electron volt. From Bohr's analysis, we know that q by 2 rb is equal to 13.6 electron volts. So we can estimate the kinetic energy of the individual protons in this configuration that we discussed as so this is the individual rotational energy or the kinetic energy of the proton, half m r square omega square. Here m is mp, mass of the proton. So this turns out to be q by 2r because of the circular orbit criteria. And q by 2r, if we take in the 2 range, this is the lower range, 1.3 rb separation or 3.5 rb separation. In this range, we get, if it's in the lower range of separation, we get 5.23 electron volts. If it is in the higher range of separation, we get lower kinetic energy, 1.94 electron volts. So this is the range of the kinetic energy of the proton or the rotational energy of the proton. Radial energy is 0, dr by dt is 0 because radius is constant. And this range, 1.94 to 5.23 electron volt, is like the kinetic energy of the protons observed in the Coulomb explosion. Domagoj-Pavlicek, in his 2004 thesis on Coulomb explosion and intense field photodissociation of ion beam of H2 plus and D2 plus, notes that the kinetic energy of the protons after H2 plus explosion is in the range of 1 to 5 electron volts. So it's well within the range that we are predicting. So in our calculations, we find that the potential energy term is getting added to the electrons energy term and destabilizing it. So basically in our calculations, we'll find that the rotational energy, whatever the proton had possessed, that will go off with the proton as its kinetic energy during the explosion. And if there is any electron present in the mix, if it is H2 plus or H2 or something, then whatever the potential energy that was locked with the protons will be transferred or will be affecting the electron energy term. So this q by 2r will go to the electron energy term and it will reduce its ionization potential or it destabilizes it. So the potential energy term in the will be in this range. For the lower separation length 1.3 RB, we get 20.92 electron volt, and for the higher range 3.5 RB, we get 7.77 electron volt. So this is the potential energy, and this is the range of kinetic energy. For the free two proton system, that is the one circular orbit we saw without any electrons in the system. So the net energy of the proton-proton system is positive, and it reduces the stability of the electronic orbit whenever an electron is present. So the range 11.6 to 31.4 electron volt that we saw in the previous slide is the total energy of the free proton-proton system. And this is the kinetic energy, this is the potential energy, and the whole range, the total range will be in this 11.6 to 31.4. That is the whole total energy. So when an H2 1 plus or a hydrogen molecular ion H2 plus loses an electron, the byproduct is a free electron at rest and protons carrying kinetic energy. So the protons carry kinetic energy because of this Coulomb explosion. So when this Coulomb explosion happens, the protons carry their rotational energy term, or the kinetic energy associated with this rotational energy will be converted to their kinetic energy, and they move off with this velocity, half m with this energy corresponding to half m r square omega square. And we use this Coulomb explosion concept in the derivation of ionization and dissociation energies. Suppose now we consider the general case where the diatomic molecule is formed by the combination of similar atoms with p protons and n neutrons. That is homonuclear diatomic molecules as shown here. P plus 1 is one nucleus, P plus N is one nucleus, P plus N is another nucleus. So both the nucleus have the same protons and the same neutrons. So this is a homonuclear diatomic molecule. So in this case, we can modify the proton-proton energy equation that we saw earlier. So this was the single proton's proton-proton equation, one proton interacting with another. Now this will get converted to this form because there are now p protons and n electrons. We consider the mass of the neutron is nearly same as the mass of the proton, so we will not separately consider mass of the neutron. So we'll just add up the mass of neutron also as the mass of proton. So we get this E equals p plus n mp into these kinetic energy terms, radial and the rotational terms, plus p square q by 2r. So this is the energy equation for this configuration. From this, by considering d by dr equals 0, that is the derivative of E with respect to r, by considering d by dr is 0, and by considering this r is constant, therefore d square r by dt square, the acceleration term of r, as 0, by considering those two terms, we get this circular orbit criteria has 4 p plus n mp r cube omega square equals p square q. So in the previously we had seen the case where p equals 1, n equals 0 for the hydrogen case, hydrogen molecule case. So if p equals 1, n equals 0, this reduces to the relationship that we saw previously, 4m r cube omega square equals q. Q is this constant E square by 4 pi epsilon naught. So this is the generalized form, 4 p plus n mp r cube omega square equals p square q for any homonuclear diatomic molecule. So let us now consider the lower range of omega we found in the case of hydrogen. That is, omega is 0.005 omega b, corresponding to the longer bond separation length, 3.5 rb. So omega is 0.005 omega b. Therefore, mp omega square will be 72. And if we use these values, this value of omega here in this circular orbit criteria, we get this expression. 2r equals 2 into 21.77 p square by 4 into p plus n whole cube root into rb. So this 2r is the separation length between the two nucleus. So at P equals 1, N equals 0 for the case of hydrogen molecule, as expected, the predicted value of 2R, this 2R will be 3.5 Rb. Because we use that value to 3.5 Rb to derive this value mp omega square equals 72, or omega is 0.005 omega b, small omega b. So in that lower omega range, 2R is 3.5 Rb. So this formula was derived using those conditions. So naturally, if we put P equals 1, N equals 0 for a hydrogen atom, we'll get back this value, 2R equals 3.5 Rb. But the lowest bond length of hydrogen molecule is measured to be 1.3 Rb, where Rb is the Bohr radius. Here, using this formula, we are attempting to predict the free nucleus-nucleus interaction distances in the absence of any electrons. Thus, we chose the lower omega range. Omega is 0.005 omega b, which corresponds to the larger distance 2R equals 3.5 Rb between the hydrogen atoms in a molecule. With interaction, the electrons will further attract these protons together and bring them closer than this length 2R predicted here. So using the constant omega assumption, if we proceed to calculate the upper limit of bond lengths of other diatomic molecules, we get this. For carbon, that is P equals 6, N equals 6, if we put here in this formula, we get 2R equals 5.074 Rb, and the measured diatomic molecule bond length of carbon is 2.5 Rb. And for bromine, we put P equals 35 and N equals 44. The predicted bond length or the separation length from this formula is 8.775 Rb, and the measured bromine to bond length is 4.31 Rb. And for iodine, we can put P equals 53 and N equals 74. This is the predicted 2R is 9.875 Rb, and the measured iodine bond length is 5.04 Rb. So as we can see, our predicted lengths are pretty much bigger than the measured bond lengths. So we are able to predict the upper limit of the bond lengths. So the black line in this figure shows the variation of normalized diatomic bond lengths. So the normalized diatomic bond length means 2R is what the actual separation length is. So we divide 2R by Rb, which is the Bohr radius, 2R by Rb normalized by Rb. So this is the bond length normalized by Rb along the y-axis. And here so bond lengths are given as a function of the atomic number P in the x-axis. So P is the number of protons in each of these atoms forming the diatomic molecule. The red line is the bond length predicted by our analysis using this formula. So we can see that it is consistently much larger than the measured bond lengths. We wanted to predict the upper limit. Looks like we have done a good job. In comparison to the minimum bond length values reported by NIST, our predicted values are large. So basically these black line values have been taken from NIST. The website is mentioned here, except for rubidium. This is the rubidium. The rubidium bond length has been taken from Wiki, which was not there in NIST. And NIST basically report the lowest possible bond lengths in this particular table. For example, if for nitrogen there is a single bond length, double bond length, and a triple bond length possible, and the triple bond length is the smallest among these three values, and NIST will report the triple bond length instead of the single bond or double bond or some other length where it may be larger. So NIST is reporting the smallest possible bond lengths of this particular diatomic configuration. So in comparison to that, our upper limit prediction is pretty large, and it envelopes the actual measured values. This figure again shows the variation of the diatomic bond lengths as a function of the atomic number in black line. Black line is the same as we saw in the previous slide. The blue line is the curve p power 1 by 3, or the cube root of the atomic number, which passes right through this black line. And the red line is the predicted bond length, that is 2r here, according to this formula, 2r divided by 2.6. This is 2r divided by 2.6, that is the red line. So we can see that the red line is very close to the blue curve, and they both remarkably seem to capture the large-scale trend in the observed bond length variation. So in spite of so there is a lot of variation in the bond lengths. There is highs and lows, but in spite of that, there is a trend where in general the lowest reached at a higher p number will still be higher than the lowest value seen for a lower p number, and so on. There is a general increasing trend in the bond lengths, and these blue and the red lines capture the trend. This figure shows the variation of mp omega square as a function of the atomic number p. So the black line is the mp omega square calculated using the observed bond lengths to r observed from the NIST data. So we get this equation: mp omega square equals p square q by 4 pm. This we got from the circular orbit criteria. We use this equation to calculate mp omega square that has been calculated in this black line, and r obs is taken from the NIST data. So we use this formula. This formula is plotted in black here. The green line is constant mp omega square is 71.5, which was calculated by assuming the separation length between hydrogen atoms as 3.5 rb, which is the larger range of the separation length, at p equals 1, n equals 0, that is hydrogen atom. So most often we notice that mp omega square is well above the 71.5 value calculated from hydrogen. Lithium has the lowest value. mp omega square is 31 here, and nitrogen has the highest value. mp omega square is 1220. High mp omega square, or basically high omega, which is the angular velocity value, may imply large interaction with the electrons. The interaction seems to enhance the omega values and brings down the separation lengths, whereas low mp omega square value implies less electronic interaction of these nucleus with the electrons. Suppose now we consider the general case where the diatomic molecule is formed by the combination of atom 1 with p1 protons and n1 neutrons. So this is the first nucleus with p1 and n1 protons, neutrons, and atom 2 with p2 protons and n2 neutrons. So this is the nucleus of the second atom, nucleus 2. It has p2 protons and n2 neutrons. So these two nucleus need not be same. In the previous case, we saw homonuclear diatomic molecule case where p1 was equal to p2 and n1 was equal to n2. Here we consider the general case where p1, n1, p2, n2 can be anything. So by considering that those energy equations and following the procedure for finding the circular orbit criteria, we get this. Circular orbit criteria in this configuration. So basically mp r1 plus r2 omega cube. r1 plus r2 is nothing but the total separation distance 2r. mp r1 plus r2 whole cube omega square is this. We get this. This is the circular orbit criteria in this configuration. So from this we can see the total separation length can be expressed as r1 plus r2 is cube root of this term, cube root of all these constants into q by mp omega square. So suppose if we put p2 equals p1 equals p and n2 equals n1 equals n, then this r1 plus r2 expression reduces to this. R1 plus r2 will be equal to some constant into p square by p plus n power 1 by 3. proportional to this. The separation length will be proportional to this, and which is the same as the homonuclear diatomic molecule separation length we saw earlier in the previous slides. Basically, this is same as this 2r equals 2 into this whole expression. So we can see that p square by 4 into p plus n, cube root of that is the common term here. That is how the variation, the separation length varies, and the rest of the terms are constant. Similarly, we can put P1 equals 1 and N1 equals 0. That is a list of all the, that is a formula for all the bonding lengths when one of the bonding atoms is hydrogen. So this one atom is always hydrogen. This is a hydrogen nucleus plus E. And it is getting bonded with some arbitrary nucleus 2 with P2 protons and N2 neutrons. This is hydrogen. This can be anything, lithium, oxygen, carbon, anything. So in that case, this expression, this was the general expression. If we put P1 equals 1 and N1 equals 0 in this reduces to this. So this gives the bond lengths of hydrogen with other elements, diatomic bond lengths. So here we see this black line is from the NIST data of hydrogen bond lengths with other elements, and this red line is what we predict. Red line is 0.55 into this expression, cube root here. So we see the red line pretty much captures the general trend of the bond lengths measured in the data, as seen in the data. Similarly, we can put this nucleus as P1 equals 8 and N1 equals 8. These are the bonding lengths with oxygen. So if we put P1 equals 8 and N1 equals 8 in this general formula, we get R1 plus R2 is proportional to this 16 plus P2 into N2 whole into P2 divided by P2 plus N2 cube root. So the separation length will be proportional to the proton and neutron numbers like this. So this is the one of the nucleus will always be oxygen nucleus, which has 8 protons and 8 neutrons, and this is some arbitrary nucleus, hydrogen, carbon, anything. So here we see this is from backline is from the NIST data, and this is our form. This is what we predict using our analysis: 0.65 into R1 R2, where R1 R2 is nothing but this expression here, cube root expression. So we see, except for this small kink which happens at the lithium, which will be addressed in our future work. Except this, more or less we see that the large scale long range trends match both with the data. I mean, our predicted trend matches with the trend in the data. Thus we see that the equations derived by us like this capture the long range trend observed in the bond lengths. Basing on the concepts discussed here, we can also explain the dissociation energy of the hydrogen molecular ion, that is the reaction H2 plus 2.8 electron volts is give rise to 1 hydrogen atom plus 1 proton we discussed earlier. Further, we can also explain the ionization and dissociation energy of the hydrogen molecule, that is the reaction H2 plus 15.4 electron volt give rise to 1 hydrogen molecular ion plus 1 free electron, and the reaction H2 plus 4.74 electron volts give rise to 2 free hydrogen atoms. This is the dissociation of hydrogen molecule. So we can explain these things. We shall discuss about them in the next video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and get notified. Check out for more details on our website. So thank you. If you want to understand the concepts of physics in the clearest way, regardless of the concerns about scoring high marks in exams, please visit neophysics.com.